All right, it's Wednesday, July 12th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a two up bar that gapped higher and closed a little bit red, so it's kind of more of a pause bar. Again, we took out the high of the previous day. We reached targets here on that gap up, so that made it tricky in terms of where you're going to get a lot of continuation. You can see between the blue lines was the pre-market range. We started up a little bit past there to start, but then kind of settled in and just closed neutral. So going into tomorrow, you have this red bar. It's possible we just, hold kind of the midpoint of this bar and start up tomorrow and get a lot of continuation because the continuity is to the upside. It's also possible we come down and fill in this gap. In terms of failing, I guess it's always possible by the end of the week with 2 days to go, you can get some big red bars coming down, but you're not anticipating that. So tomorrow, if we get a 2 down, we'll look to fill in this gap, but not necessarily reach all the way down to this target. Some of the better buys coming up will be after some pullbacks and some pauses and then continuation higher. Again, on the weekly chart, just to look at the big picture first, we have an inside bar here, red bar after a pause that took out its previous week's high. That's kind of where we're at, and that's all it really needed to do. And the monthly chart is now starting up green with a target up here, as I've discussed. Again, I think this big red bar after we went 2 down, 2 up here, these 1, 2, 3, 4, and now the fifth bar is kind of a compound broadening action of this bar, taking out the lows and then eventually the highs. But we have all, well, this is a quarterly chart, so in terms of the monthly chart, we did turn up. Let me get that. And we're just getting continuation there again with the next monthly target, kind of where that quarterly target is. So we even have the rest of the month to get up there if it wants to do that, as long as we kind of stay green on the month. All the bias is to the upside, even if we get a little bit of a pullback somewhere along the way. Again, this green line represents the open of the month, and we'll see if we hold above there. In terms of structure today, it's just a thing where you had the big gap up. So obviously your buys the upside. The first bar paused, second bar went up. So you did have kind of 45 minutes of a trade. I wasn't trading the SPY or even considering it given the gap up. I more wanted to look at individual stocks. So if I just look around the board, I mean, here's the SPY that went up. I was watching. See, CRM, there were a couple of stocks I was looking at right before the open. And when they had kind of an obvious target, that's kind of what I was looking to trade. Stocks that if they moved up to start, they had a good target. So CRM, Salesforce had that target up here at the second blue line. So I did buy it here. It did pull back a lot, but then it had a secondary move up. And First Solar was the same type of thing where this buy in here had these 2 targets. There was a double top that I discussed on some videos here. So those were the stocks to follow. Not every stock went up right out of the gates. Netflix went down, so it didn't really give you any buy opportunities. And Nvidia also was I just saw the strength in this one. And I liked these targets up here as well. And then getting beyond there, we're working up towards there. So, that was one I really had a good focus on. So, it's just a matter of looking around the board and finding Tesla. Obviously, I was watching that. That didn't go anywhere from the start. So that's how you kind of judge things, by what kind of price action, how it opens, some of the big picture context, if you have some targets that you're looking to reach and that type of thing. And then you can kind of see the opening, and then you can see if there's kind of one push up, and then, where your initial trades out of the gate here might rely on prior day targets. Any secondary trade, relies on your intraday highs and lows and whether or not it could reach there. So if you really felt Nvidia it might get back up to those highs, then this was a red to green kind of orderly pullback, kind of the midpoint of that first move up. Could have bought there and you would have come pretty close, things like that. Whereas other stocks, like Netflix, once it had this big red bar, there was really no obvious, pattern here that it was going to reach those highs of the day again. So I wouldn't have been interested in going long on that. So anyway, on the SPY, we end up with kind of this red day. We'll see if we maybe come down and fill in this gap. We're still going to look for buy opportunities. I mean, there are several ways it could happen. Let's just say we open lower. You could fail and come back through the midpoint of that bar tomorrow and head higher. Maybe you can come down here, get 2 pushes down on the day into this gap. That could be a scalp buy, but I would be more excited if we do get a 2 down day to buy the next 2 up day. Maybe we just start up, and this gap doesn't get filled until sometime later on. So who knows, what's going to happen. But for now, the weekly chart is kind of done all it's supposed to do, reaching its high. I don't know how this week's going to end up. It could still be a nice green bar, which would then, the more we determine it's going to be a green bar by Thursday and Friday, and for the end of Friday, the more we can feel comfortably get a little follow through into next week. But it all depends how that happens. Maybe we get a nice green bar by Friday, and then we start down Monday, and then we have the turnaround Tuesday to go higher. So, you just got to kind of go day by day and kind of start anticipating how these bars are going to look. But for now, we'll have to just see if we, opening price action tomorrow will determine whether we fill in this gap first, or maybe if we, just a pause and the momentum continues. Because in the end, we're still biased to the upside until all kinds of things break down on the weekly chart, monthly chart, quarterly chart, that type of thing. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow.